Hey, what is up, everybody? Retired Navy SEAL and combat medic Chris Sajnog here, and in this video, I am continuing on with my Smart Medicine series, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about reassessing your patient. So make sure you stick around because this information could just save your life, or more likely somebody else's. Now, before we get started, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Everbella, and their Complete Collagen Plus. All right, so I came up with Smart Emergency Medicine, and SMART stands for Scene Safe, Massive Bleeding, Airway, Reassess, and then Transport. SMART is a simple, effective system that you can use to treat anybody in an emergency medical situation before medical personnel arrive, or you can get the patient to a hospital. Now, if you haven't watched the previous video on airway, I highly recommend you watch that first so you can do everything in the right order. So the R in Smart Medicine stands for reassess. And what that means, it's just going back and rechecking all your previous treatments. So for example, if you stopped massive bleeding in your blood sweep with a tourniquet, and then you go on to the airway and you check the airway, after you're done with the airway, go back to the tourniquet and make sure that it's still effective. And you're really going to be doing this, reassessing throughout the entire treatment, all the way until you get through the last one, the T, in transportation. And as you're reassessing, you should also be looking for and treating minor wounds. This is also called a secondary assessment. So if you remember when you do the blood sweep, and I was saying head to toe, treat as you go. When you find massive bleeding, like something you need to put a tourniquet on, you do that and you move on. It's the same way with your secondary assessment. As you come to something, you want to treat that injury before moving on. So really, you're just going head to toe. If you want an easy way to remember it, what we did when I was in Corps School and combat medic training, 18 Delta, was remember HNS Casper. HNS Casper stands for head, neck, shoulders, chest, abdomen, spine, pelvis, extremities, and then reassess. So remembering, you're always looping back to this reassessment. So for the head, you're going to be looking for things like raccoon eyes. So if their eyes look like the raccoon, they've got blood pooling in them. Battle signs, or blood behind the ears, blood coming from the ears, blood coming from the nose, really obviously blood coming from anywhere. You want to check their airway, make sure that's good. You can check their skin temperature, their skin color, see if they're sweating or if they're dry. All of these things can be indications of what's wrong with them. I also like to perform what's called a halo test. So if you have blood coming from the ears or the nose, really anywhere in the head, find something white that will absorb liquid, aka blood, and you just touch it to that, touch the blood to it. And if there's a halo around the blood, that is cerebral spinal fluid, and that's an indication that you really need to be careful with this patient because they have a head injury. All right, moving on to the neck, you want to palpate, a fancy name for feel, the C-spine. So you're just walking your fingers down the back of their neck to make sure you don't feel any bones that are sticking out or out of place. You also want to check for JVD, or jugular vein distension. So if you see a big vein on either side of their necks, you want to note that. And also tracheal deviation. Your trachea should be midline. So if it's off to one side, that could be a sign that there's a tension pneumothorax or something going on. And again, you don't need to know what these things mean, but it is good to know so you can tell medical personnel what's happening with this patient. For the shoulders, you want to be checking for stability. So you're just going to push on them, push in, push down, and you're feeling for any crepitus. Crepitus means that it's the sound of bones grinding together. And you can also be looking at the patient's face. If they are unconscious, they can still wince or make a face that lets you know that they're in pain. And obviously, if they're conscious, they will tell you they're in pain. All right, for the chest, you want to first check and see if they have any medical alert tags that could give you an indication of what's wrong with them, or who to contact. anything like that. You also want to look for rise and fall of the chest. You want to make sure it's the same. It's not going separately, or it's called paradoxal movement in the chest. It should be the same. If you have the opportunity, you want to listen for breath sounds. If you have a stethoscope, you could listen for heart sounds, anything like that. And obviously you want to expose the chest and look for any injuries or deformities, anything that stands out. That's what you're looking for through this entire assessment, is just what stands out, what is not normal. All right, onto the abdomen. Basically what you want to do is put the abdomen in like just cut it in 4 separate areas. And you're going to be, obviously, first look before you touch. With everything you do, you always look before you touch. And when we get to the groinical region, areas like that, you should make sure you ask before you touch too. Or, you know, ladies, or however they identify, whatever. Make sure you have consent. But after you look and you don't see anything wrong, you're going to be pushing on each of those 4 quadrants, and you're looking for what's called point tenderness. So when you push, it hurts. The other thing you can do is look for rebound tenderness. That means when you let up, that's when it hurts. And again, you don't need to know what these things mean. You need to note that for medical personnel. And again, look at their face if they're unconscious. When you push, does it hurt? Yes or no. When you let up, do they wince? Yes or no. All right, when it comes to the spine, you always want to try to protect the C-spine or their neck, especially if you suspect that they fell or they have signs of a head or neck injury. But never let this stop you from stopping bleeding, okay? But if we don't believe that there's a head injury, we're going to roll the patient up. And the same thing on the neck, you're going to walk your fingers down their spine and make sure that it's straight. You're going to be looking for any deformities, any holes. You know, maybe there's an entrance or exit wound that you didn't catch initially. And then again, you're going to be treating that as it goes. And also when you're back here, this guy doesn't have much. It's super flat. I never noticed that before, but check the old buttocks when you're back here too. All right, moving on, when they're back on their back, you are going to check their pelvis. And after you look, look first, and then you're going to be pressing on it. And you're just looking for stability. Again, you're listening and feeling for that crepitus, any bones grinding together. And when you're here too, you need to check if there is a priapism. A priapism is an erection, and it does not go away. It's not a sign that they are happy to see you. It's actually a sign that they may have a fractured C7 vertebrae. And folks, now this is critical. It should be obvious by now, the world we're living in, but it's critical that you ask the patient their preferred pronouns and do not go by your biological findings. All right, for the 4 extremities, you are going to, again, look first, make sure you see everything, expose everything if you need to. And something I just want to note here, if there was one gunshot and you can tell the person got shot in the leg and they're saying their leg hurts and there's blood coming out of their legs, a lot of this stuff may not be necessary. So I just wanted to point that out. You may not need to do all this stuff, but when it comes to the extremities, what you want to do is look first and then just look for any bruises, bumps, bones sticking out. That would be a big one. Don't see any of that, then you want to twist above each joint, over each joint, get it to move, and then below each joint. So you're twisting, and again, looking at their face. This is a good time too to check their skin color. Check for turgor, which is when you pinch the skin, it should go back to normal. If it doesn't and it stays tented up like that, that's a sign that they are dehydrated. You can be checking their pulse here. Make sure you check pulses on both sides, especially if you suspect an injury on one of those sides. All right, and the final R, the R that we're doing here, but just a reminder to reassess. So going back, looking at this tourniquet, making sure it's still effective, making sure the airway is still open. Anything you treated, you're going to be rechecking it. You're going to be doing this until you pass on this patient to the next person. This is also a good time to start checking some vital signs. So you can check their breathing rate, you can check their pulse rate, and you can also check their systolic blood pressure, also known as their pulse pressure. And this is really a gauge of their blood pressure that you need to know to keep them alive. Checking the breathing rate should be pretty simple. You can just rest your hand on their chest and count their respirations for 1 minute. And you don't want to let them know that you're counting. If you tell them you're counting their respirations, they're going to be conscious of it. It could throw your numbers off. A good way to do it is they can't change their pulse unless, you know, they got some mad meditation skills that they're into. But check their pulse. Once you get their pulse, you can just kind of rest. His arm doesn't want to bend like that, but you just rest your hand with that and you act like you're still checking their pulse, but now you're checking their respirations. Sorry, his little stoma apparently just popped out there. He is good to go now. On to checking the pulse. The easiest way I've found to check a pulse is to just count for 6 seconds and then add a 0 to that. So if you count 6 beats of their pulse in 6 seconds, just add a 0 and their pulse rate is 60 beats per minute. All right, for checking the pulse pressure or their systolic blood pressure, there's 4 places that I like to check. And really what you're finding out is the heart's ability to pump blood throughout the body. So the further away you can feel a pulse, the better it is for this patient. So the first place is the carotid artery, and I'm sure everybody knows where that is. You can find it. Make sure when you're checking a pulse on anyone, you don't use your thumb because you can feel your pulse with your thumb. I usually use these 2 fingers right here on the side. So if you feel a pulse there, that's great. That means they have a pulse pressure of 60. Going further away, we are going down to the femoral artery. Now again, this is the groinical region down here, so ask for permission if you must. This is why I have a test dummy, because nobody lets me into their groinical region, unfortunately. But check on yourself before somebody else. You don't want to be digging around in somebody else's groinical, or maybe you do, but just make sure they let you. But you should be able to find it on yourself. When you find it on yourself, it'll be easier to find on somebody else. So this is going to give you a pulse pressure of 70. The next one is the radial pulse. This is the pulse most people are used to. Remember that the pulse is on the thumb side of either arm, so make sure you're checking the correct side. All right, so we've got 60, 70, 80, and then 90 is the dorsalis pedis pulse, which is on the top of the foot. And again, this is something you can sit around when you're watching TV, feel for these pulses, feel your partner's foot pulses if you want. Give them a massage when you're down there, just be nice. One good thing to do also is to continue checking their vital signs. Even if you don't really know what they mean, it's a good indication whether the patient is getting better or they're getting worse. And you want to be able to document as much as you can for when the paramedics arrive or you get this person to a hospital, that you can give them as much information as possible to help save their life. Okay, that is it for today's video. I hope you got some value out of it. And remember to practice the lesson you just learned. Grab a friend, or if you happen to have a training mannequin, your spouse, whoever, somebody off the street, and practice. Do your secondary assessment, find those pulse points. Again, if you're in the groinical region, get informed consent before you do that. But make sure you practice. If all you do is watch this video, that's not going to save anybody's life. In the next video, I'm going to be covering the T in smart medicine, and that stands for transport. Please remember to like and share this video with those you care about, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. And remember to hit that little notification bell so that you're notified every time I post new content. And until then, keep paving your path to perfection. Hey, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this video, Everbella, and their Complete Collagen Plus. I'm sure you've heard by now about the benefits of collagen, and you think, oh, I should be taking that. But did you know that most collagen on the market supplements, the collagen gets destroyed by the stomach acid before your body can use it? Everbella uses micellized collagen, and no, that doesn't mean they have mice as a delivery service for the collagen. It is a delivery service in the form of a protective barrier around the collagen particles so they can pass through the acidic environment of the stomach so your body can use it. Collagen not only promotes hair growth, but it also helps ease muscle pain after workouts. It gives you more energy and actually helps you burn fat. That's because collagen is literally the glue that holds your body together. It's in your skin, your joints, and bones, and your body literally cannot make hair without it. Just look at this picture of me and my older brother Brian when we were kids. We both had beautiful blonde hair, along with those sweet matching swim trunks. Now compare that to this picture from 2003. As you can clearly see, he didn't take Complete Collagen Plus and went bald, while I still have a full head of hair to this day. So if you don't want to be bald like my older brother, order Complete Collagen Plus. Side note, if you don't want to die like my older brother, rest in peace, you should also quit smoking. If you do smoke and you've got that ugly smoker's skin that's all wrinkly and nasty looking, Complete Collagen Plus will help with that, not so much the dying part. So put out that cigarette and go to everbella.com/Chris to order yours. Make sure you use that link. I will put it in the description below. Again, everbella.com/Chris, and you will get up to 25% off your entire order.